Hello everyone, welcome to NintenDormant, the podcast where we discuss Nintendo games that have been left on the shelf. Joining me for today's episode, it's another one from Good Vibes Gaming, it's Brandon Miracle. Brandon, hello!
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. How have you been?
Not too shabby. Had a busy last couple of days doing a whole lot of work stuff, GVG related stuff. But I'm happy that I could make some time and hang out with you guys.
Well, speaking of GVG related stuff, we have a returning GVG guest. Say hello to Daniel Alba. Daniel, hello.
Hello, so good to see you. Thank you for having me over again. I'm glad I didn't cause so much trouble last time that I got invited to another one.
Last time was so interesting because you and she says are obviously such massive fans of Kid Icarus, and I felt like such an imposter with my basic level knowledge of the game. So I owe you an apology, and it's here. I'm sorry.
No, it's no problem. I mean, Kid Icarus isn't really that well. Not enough people have played the original Kid Icarus, so it's nice to talk to someone about it and to just kind of share our own passion for the original game, as well as Uprising and Myth and Monsters, the one that pretty much no one has played as well.
That's true. I did make a promise that I'm going to complete both the first two games before the end of the year, and I will definitely maybe keep that promise. Thank you, both of you, for joining me this week. It's my second episode with two Good Vibe Gaming gamers joining me, which I've billed as GVGvGVG, which I'm hoping that everybody enjoys as much as I enjoy saying it.
I love it. Put it on a shirt.
GVGvGVG. Which one of you? Now you're both handy with a pen. You both do lovely artwork. So who's going to do GVGvGVG for me?
I only just started. This is a new thing for me.
Well, you say you just started, so I've seen on BlueSky you've been doing some lovely posts. You've got a little a slime from Dragon Quest, right, with a little moustache.
Yeah, I used to draw a lot as a kid, and one thing in my professional career I've been wanting to do is more hand animation, and can't do hand animation if I can't draw. So, I had an iPad already, so I picked up an Apple Pencil, and I've just kind of been doodling and practicing. I was surprised at how much of that I was able to retain.
Oh, no way. Yeah.
Because it's been since high school since I've really been drawing. But, it's just something I want to approach slowly. And, in addition to just being a work thing, it's nice to have like a secondary hobby. I can sit on the couch, in with the family and just start doodling while, we're watching a movie or something. It's nice.
So I've got a bit of a mad story about that. I'm one half of Fat Nose Games. We make games for the Playdate, if you know what Playdate is, like the little yellow sort of GameBoy thing with the crank. Yeah, Playdate, right.
Oh, yeah.
And we released one of a sequel to our first game, Along Came a Spider. And we had somebody lined up to do the artwork for it. But unfortunately, they had some health issues, so they couldn't do it. And it was about 4 days before we had to submit the artwork. We were sort of contractually obliged to submit it. So I went, oh my God. No. Let's get an iPad, get a pencil. And I downloaded this software to start drawing. And I'm not fantastic at drawing. But what I love is that it makes you so much better when it just fixes all the mistakes. And when you learn about layering and stuff, the stuff you can create is incredible. Much better than I can ever do with a pencil and paper.
Oh, yeah. Layers are a savior for any creative program. I've been meaning to get like a stylus as well. I have an iPad that I got recently, and I want to be able to do some more art as well, but I need a proper stylus to do so.
Yeah. So I'm obviously doing all the editing for this podcast, and part of that is putting together the thumbnails for YouTube. And drawing Kirby is so satisfying, so soft and plump and pink. He's my absolute favourite thing to draw. What about games? What games have you guys been into recently? I know, Brandon, you're a big... Are you wearing a Monster Hunter t-shirt right now, in fact? Is that what I
am.
Very nice.
This is Zinogre. He's the most popular Monster Hunter in Monster Hunter by far. Okay. It's proven by stats. But I haven't been playing a lot of Monster Hunter lately. I've actually been dabbling in a few different things. I've been playing a little bit of Dragon Quest III HD 2D because big Dragon Quest fan. And weirdly enough, I've been playing a lot of Fortnite.
Oh, really?
Which is seen.
which is not something I typically do. But my friends are playing Fortnite, and they got me into it. And now I like it.
He's been consumed by the fork knife.
I have been.
He's gone to the dark side. Oh man, I've never played it. I feel like I'm too old to play it, but I don't know if that's true. Can you ever be too old for a game? Is that a thing?
You're too old to play Roblox. You're not too old to play Fortnite.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
That's right.
I mean, I talk about games for fun, and I only have a very loose grasp of what Roblox is, which feels shameful. I feel like I should really know much more about it. How about you, Daniel? What are you playing at the moment?
Oh man, so there's one I've kind of consumed myself with because I'm doing it for a review. So I'll tell you about it at some point because that comes out. Well, not really a review even. It's kind of like just a first look because the game's not out yet. But alongside that, the one I've been playing the most is just steamrolling my way through the last bits of Metaphor Refantasio. I am literally at the end right now. I am standing in front of the final boss. I've been meaning to get to that sooner, but it's been hard to do so because there's just so much happening right now. There's so many games to play and news to cover and videos to make and podcasts to do. So I had to make sure I made time to kind of just sparingly do it as much as I can throughout. And yeah, it probably is one of my, if not my top game of the year, 2024.
Wow.
Obviously it's by the people that have also made games like Shin Megami Tensei and Persona, so there's a lot of DNA from those games inside Metaphor, and has a lot of at this moment it has a lot of nominations for Game of the Year, and Atlas put all their chips on that one, so I'm really rooting for it to win some good awards for this year.
What's the feeling you've got stood in front of the boss? Is it sort of excitement, dread, anticipation? How are you feeling about crossing the line?
It's funny because like the entire theme of this game is anxiety, and so there's a lot of moments of this game where it hits really hard, especially this year because Metaphor is actually quite political. I mean, the whole theme is being able to, you're in a race or of sorts to become the new king of this fantasy land, and it gets very political at times, and it kind of is a good a metaphor to what's happening right now in our world. So it came out in a pretty good time for that. But yeah.
Oh, we do not have time to cover that.
Oh no, yeah, it's not something I would bring up.
Oh yeah, oh no. Well, at least today you will get the chance to play President, however briefly. And of course, we're all here because we love games. So why don't we play a little game right now? Yes, it's time for the NintenDormant Rapid Quiz. It might not win Game of the Year, but we still have fun while we do it. So it's 2 rounds. First round is fastest finger first, followed by play or pass for double points. Now, Daniel, you've played with us before. Brandon, you're new to the game. And when you start playing the game, the audience won't hear the buzzer. So we say you get to pick the buzzer, which we'll edit in later. So what buzzer would you like today?
I think my buzzer is going to be the sound Yoshi makes when you jump on him in Super Mario World.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, right. That's quite straightforward. And if not, I can just fake it. So thank you very much. Daniel, would you like to return to your buzzer from before, or are you going to pick something new?
Oh, let's do if it makes it easier for you, and so it's kind of in theme. I'll just remain the same cape sound effect. And also, we're now from the same game now, Brandon. So it fits.
That's nice. Okay. Not from Kirby, which we're discussing later, but nobody ever picks something to do with the game we're discussing, so it's very on brand for how this quiz has gone in previous episodes. All right, everybody. So, who is Kirby's longtime villain? Oh, it's Daniel Just.
Would that be the King Dedede?
Of course, it's Dedede. Dedede, Dedede. What do you guys say?
I always say Dedede.
I'm in Camp Dedede as well, yeah.
See, I think I was too, but am I not right in thinking that the announcer in Smash said Dedede?
I think in Japan it's pronounced more so as Dedede than King Dedede here.
Yeah.
I think in Japan the announcer doesn't even say King, it's just Dedede.
Dedede.
Mm-hmm.
In my head he's going Dedede, but that might be wrong. And I might be confusing it with a voice that does America's Got Talent and all that sort of stuff. Yes, point for Daniel. King Dedede. Question 2. What planet does Kirby live on? Oh, it's Brandon.
Popstar?
Planet Popstar, of course.
Pop star.
Beautiful little
Yeah.
Planet Popstar. Actually, do you know what? Going back to Dedede for a second, because I've just pictured him in my head. What animal? Is he a penguin? He's a penguin.
He's
I've
supposed
always
to be
thought
a-
he was a penguin.
Pretty sure he's penguino. Yeah, he's a penguin.
Penguino? This is not a word I'm familiar with.
Oh, it's just Spanish for penguin, but I like saying
Oh.
penguino more than penguin.
It's much more fancy. I'm 100% using it going forward. Thank you very much. Penguino. You have
El penguino.
King Dedede, El Penguino. Oh, I want to know what king is. What's king? Can you give me in your most seductive Spanish voice? I am King Dedede, the Penguin King. Just for me.
Soy King Dedede, el penguino rey.
It's quite.
Something like that. I feel like I
Wow.
was just voice acting Meta Knight saying that instead.
It was very alluring.
4 kids bed at night.
I'm all hot under the collar. It's very nice. Right. Question 3. What color is Kirby on the NES box? It's Daniel.
Kirby is white on the box.
He is strangely white. Yes, he is. Have you seen it, Brandon? The box for the NES game?
Yep. I think he's white in the original US commercial as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look anything like him either. He's sort of very wide with kind of triangly arms. I think even his shoes are white. He's just it's like a ghost. He basically just looks like a ghost.
Yeah, I'm glad that we got corrected to the pink Kirby blob that we have today instead.
Oh yeah.
Other than the fact that he's always angry.
Oh yes.
That
Oh,
too.
the classic American angry. Well, and we get them too. The angry boxes over here. Are you a fan of angry Kirby or do you prefer serene Kirby?
You know, I was kind of raised on angry Kirby, and Kirby's like this all-powerful being, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah. It's fair.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with angry Kirby on the box art. It's just funnier that way to know that, like, on Kirby Air Ride, he looks like he's having a good time, and in the American box art, he's just out to kill someone.
That's more accurate to that game, though.
This is true.
Yeah,
This is
Air
true.
Ride's a brutal game.
Oh, Air Ride is on my list to talk about as well because it is a forgotten gem. Right. So who got the point for it? Was Daniel got the point for that one. You'll learn this, Brandon. I'm very bad at keeping score on quizzes. Question 4. Here we go. This is a fastest finger first one, guys. What is the title of Kirby's 3D Switch adventure? Who's Brandon?
Kirby in the Forgotten Land?
Kirby in the Forgotten Land, of course.
I was my brain was saying Star Allies. So like, wait,
I
I
was
know.
like weirdly confused by the question for a
Yeah.
moment. I was like, what do you mean?
I mean, technically there's
Yeah.
a few, but you know what I mean. What's his big one? I mean, you could take it to the courts if you want to, but they'll throw it out. I think I've got enough leverage with that, with the phrasing for it. All right, well, we've tied up with 2-2. So to take round 1, the final question. I hope we're ready. Speaking of Kirby Air Ride, when Kirby travels great distances, what does he typically ride? It's Brandon.
Warp Star.
Of course, it's the Warp Star. A little angry boy on the
Because
Warp
you
Star.
said Air
Hang on.
Ride, I almost said Air Ride Machine.
I was thinking too granular, and I was gonna say the Wing Star because that takes you higher and farther than the Warp Star does.
What's the Wing Star? Is the Wing Star that thing that you get in Smash Brothers that just insta kill?
That's
Oh,
the
the-
Dragoon.
That's the Dragoon.
What's the Wing Star?
The Wing Star is like the white and blue one that looks like it has like bird feathers, bird wings.
Mhm.
Yep.
It's meant to
I'm with
fly
you.
higher.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've so basically what you're saying to me is my last 2 questions are both debatable in terms of their answer.
I think you could have said Air Ride Machine and the answer would have been correct.
Oh, good God. Okay, well, if nobody's going to fight me, we'll move on to play or pass. So in this round, we play for double points. Now,
Let's do it.
Brandon,
Yeah, we're
if
good.
you don't know the answer and you think Daniel doesn't know, you can pass it to him, and if he gets it wrong, you take 1 point. But if you get it right, you get 2 sweet points, and if he gets it right, he gets 2 sweet points. Now you won round 1, so you get the
Okay.
first question. Kirby's Dream Course features a yellow Kirby as a unique character, not just a palette swap. They are a unique character. What is that Kirby's name? Is it A, Kribby, B, Corby, he's nodding, or C, Kibi?
It's, of course, C, Kibi.
It is, of course, C, Kibi.
Kibi.
Daniel, did you know this?
Yeah, Kibi has been like a very prominent player too in a bunch of games, like in Kirby's Dream Course, of course, but also Kirby's first alternate costume in every Smash Brothers is yellow or Kirby.
Right, but am I not right in thinking that that's not Kirby? That's yellow Kirby.
I guess it's just a reference or so. I know Kirby is also in Kirby's Dream Buffet and is there by name. Like the yellow Kirby is called Kirby.
I've not played it. Is that true?
He made a return. Yeah,
Kirby's back.
Kirby yellow.
He's also an Amazing Mirror, isn't he? And the other two have names, I think.
An Amazing Mirror.
I forgot what the other ones' names are.
Okay,
but I know yellow is just Kirby boy.
I will fact check this, and I think this is right. I think yellow in Japanese is Kibu, maybe. So it's kind of a smashing together, a portmanteau of Kibu and Kirby.
I took Japanese for like 3 years. I think it was Kiroi, but I need to check.
I defer to Brandon.
I think it's Kiro.
It's Kiro, yeah.
Oh man, well if it starts
Kiro.
with Ki, I mean I think that still holds water. I'm just making up nonsense. I'm just lying apparently. I swear to God I do research. It just doesn't pan out very well, basically. I'm not a journalist is my excuse. Right, Daniel, question 2. So play or pass. So yes, we mentioned Kirby and the Forgotten Land, his latest one of his latest Switch games. There's of course the classic transformations for Kirby, but there's also the mouthful mode transformations. But how many mouthful mode transformations does the game have? Is it A, 14, B, 18, or C, 22?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
How many mouthful modes?
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be able to count them all down.
Now, you can pass it. If you don't think Brandon knows it, you can pass it. But what's your gut telling you?
My gut is telling me that Brandon's going to answer this for me.
I knew it.
He's passing it.
Can I have the choices again?
Yes. How many mouthful mode transformations are there? The A, 14, B, 18, or C, 22?
So I was racking my brain, and I only came up with like 7. So because of that, I'm going to choose A, 14.
Goodness me, he's pulling away. It's 7 points to 2 for Brandon.
Yes.
Oh my God. Which ones did you remember?
I remembered the light bulb, the ring, the I think it's like an air glider.
Yep. Archway, isn't it?
The cone, vending machine,
the car.
water,
the car,
and car. Yeah.
Water. Oh, there's a truck. Isn't there a big truck?
I guess you might count the big rig at the very end if you wanted
That's
to
the
count
one.
one too.
Yeah.
I guess it depends because there's also the one where he like sucks in like the cap and you have to shake the control stick to pop it off, or the shelf that he also like tumbled down on you get to pull it.
I forgot about that.
Those are very specific ones.
There's the big staircase.
Yeah, the arch, the big rig,
yeah.
the car, the cone, the dome. What's the dome? Oh, when he like goes over like a sphere one. Yeah. Light bulb.
You gotta shake
pipe.
and pop it off.
Pipe. How would we forget pipe? We do all the rolling stuff.
Oh yeah.
Pipe, ring, coaster.
It's
There's
funny.
too much pressure to think of all these at once.
Oh, it's mad.
Car is like the most famous one, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't think of that one at all.
I have to tell you the car.
Now, unfortunately, Daniel, not to take the air out of the quiz, but you can't pull this back, but you can play for pride. So we'll soldier on. Brandon, question 3. Now this isn't multiple choice. This is if you know the answer or not. In Kirby's Dream Land 3, Kirby has 3 animal pals. What are their names?
There's 3 animal pals in Kirby's Dream Land 3?
Yeah, 3
I
like
thought there were more.
Well, kind of 3 rideable mounts.
Well, I know Rick, Kine, and Koo, if that's what we're talking about.
We're talking about Rick, Kine, and Koo, and as we've established, my sources are all over the shop. So if there's more, there's probably more, but they're the ones I'm thinking of. So well done.
Yeah, there's also Gooey. I was thinking of Gooey.
There's Gooey. There's a
Gooey's
cat, isn't there?
I don't think there's a cat. Gooey's not really an animal pal, is he? What is he? He's just a sentient.
He's
blob.
player 2.
Yeah, he's
a blob.
We don't count Gooey. Maybe I'm just being blobbist.
I feel
but
like there was
I don't
like
count
this little pink thing with a bow.
With a
I remember
bow.
a cat.
Oh, there is a cat. I'm looking at the box. There's a cat. I've forgotten this cat. Who's
Yeah, the
this
cat's
cat?
Nago. Cat's
I
Nago.
forgot about Nago.
I feel
Okay.
like Daniel should get a point for knowing
And
that.
then
Yeah,
the
okay.
little pink,
Yeah.
the little pink friend with the bow is Choo Choo. Well, I guess it depends if you're talking about like the original trio or the ones that get introduced with
Yeah.
Kirby's Dream Land 3.
Because,
Yeah.
funny enough, they're introduced in Kirby's Dream Land 2, which happened to be my first Kirby game.
For God's sake, I've got to do better prep for these in the future. I will. Right. Last question, Daniel. There are lots of knights in the Kirby games, but there are only 3 winged knights that have masks and weapons. What are their names? Now, I'm not talking like dark whatever ones or like mecha ones or whatever. It's just the 3 winged, masked, armed knights.
Oh, so the other wing knights would be like Meta Knights, Galactic Knights, and Morpho Knight. That's the other one.
Oh, he's made it look easy. Goodness me. Yes, Meta Knight, Galactic Knight, and Morpho Knight. Favorite of the 3 knights?
I guess I just really like Galactic Knight. I remember I was introduced to Kirby Superstar on the DS with Kirby Superstar Ultra, and I think that's something that was added on with that version in particular. And I like the design. I guess Morpho Knight comes pretty close because of just what it implies with the lore, with the butterfly.
It's so cool.
Kirby lore is so crazy, man.
Yeah. Oh, it's mad, isn't it? Morpho Knight is a firm. I love his mask with the little the horns that come out of it, and the wings and the sword. He feels like the sort of Kirby's. I mean, obviously it's not in terms of the story of it, but like the Kirby version of Fierce Deity. Do you know what I mean? That sort of very cool.
Yeah.
Sort of strange design.
I love how it takes a design from like something as innocent as a butterfly and just makes it into something terrifying, like a stronger than the final boss kind of thing.
Brandon, favorite knight?
It's Morpho Knight. There's no question.
Oh yeah,
he's just cool.
Wait. Okay, well we're a big Morpho Knight
Poor
fans
Meta
up here. I know. Meta Knight's cool. Meta Knight's the coolest in terms of like personality.
Yeah, the other 2 are pretty much just there to just stab Kirby, pretty much. As far as I know.
Meta Knight got a starring role in the anime, and in the US, he had a whole different personality that I really latched onto. They gave Meta Knight like a Spanish accent, and Spanish guitar backed him whenever he appeared on screen. Almost like, I don't know if it was like a little bit of Zorro going on there, or
something.
It's just cool.
They took some very interesting choices with the anime, because then you also got like Midwest Dedede as well. That was a choice.
Oh my god, I have to look more into this. Right, Daniel, you have 5 points. Brandon's run away though with 9 points. Well done, Brandon.
Thank you.
Hooray!
I may not be Ant Dude, but I do love Kirby.
Well, congratulations on the quiz, and from there we're going to move on to the main event. Yes, it's time for the main event. So as you may have gathered from the quiz, we are talking about Kirby today, but not just any Kirby game, no. We are talking about
Kirby's Dream Course.
Now, quick history lesson for those who don't know.
Kirby's Dream Course
was developed by HAL and Nintendo EAD for the SNES, releasing in 1994 in Japan and in the West a year later. Although it's a spin-off, it is actually Kirby's debut for the system, combining mini-golf with Kirby's copy abilities to alter how you play. A sequel was in the works for the N64 but never released, and this remains the only entry in the series to this day, currently playable through NSO. So guys, what's your experience with the game? Did you play the game when it first came out? Is it something you've experienced later on or recently? Brandon, when did you sort of first get to grips with Kirby's Dream Course?
Funny enough, my first experience with Kirby's Dream Course was with Daniel.
What?
I
Yeah.
introduced you to it.
This is
Yeah.
He
awesome.
did. He introduced it to me.
I didn't know this. This is fantastic. You guys didn't tell me this. What's going on?
I wasn't sure if you knew, so I was just kind of waiting to drop that once we got here.
That's amazing. So, all right. So tell me how this happened then.
So, Daniel and I, for a long time, we were doing bi-weekly streams and over on our Good Vibes Gaming Twitch channel. And Daniel wanted to play Kirby's Dream Course because it has the 2-player mode.
Yeah.
And that stream was my first time ever playing it.
That's incredible. I mean, I assume Daniel won. No offense, Brandon. I assume it's one of those games you've got to get to grips with, right?
Oh, I mean, there are Twitch clips of me getting absolutely destroyed.
I gotta try and find if we saved that VOD. I hope we did.
So, Daniel, is it a game then that you played a lot when you were younger?
This is a game that it's one of those ones where a family member had it on their Super Nintendo when I went to visit them, and I was like, "What is this game?" I recognized Kirby, but I didn't know why was it in the format of a golf game. It was very strange to me, and I never really could find that for the longest time. I didn't really get reintroduced with that until it came on NSO, and I was like, "Oh, it's this game!" And I played it, and I remembered why I loved what I played all the way back then. But I remember we did the 2-player mode back then, and it was a lot of fun, even though I didn't really know what I was doing back then, because it has very intricate controls as far as like aiming and hitting your golf ball on a Super Nintendo of all things. And I know Brandon loves his golf games, so I wanted to show him like, "Hey, Brandon, you want to try Kirby Golf?" And I think we had a good time with that, regardless.
Genuinely, I think it's one of the tightest, best made golf games I've ever played. Genuinely.
The level of control you have and what the physics are doing for a Super Nintendo game, it's kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah. It's not 3D, obviously. It's all 2D, but it feels perfectly 3D. It's mad.
It's got that like that isometric perspective, and it fools you into thinking that it's 3-dimensional. It's done so well and so naturally that it just controls and feels like a dream course, you might even say.
Mwah, lovely. So I suppose we should talk about the gameplay. So the game itself does have a story. The story is that King Dedede has stolen Dedede, obviously, has stolen the stars out of the sky, and Kirby has to inexplicably play golf to bring back the stars by defeating the enemies. And the way you get through each course, you take out all the enemies on the course, and once you take out the penultimate one, the last enemy drops, forms a hole, and you have to putt Kirby? That's a weird thing to say. You have to putt Kirby in the hole. But along the way, you can bump into enemies that give you copy abilities. So things like turning into a stone, so you can drop down, stop your chip or whatever. A wheel which lets you zip along, high jumps, all sorts of things. And the gameplay is so tight in terms of. Is there anything better than putting backspin on a chip and just plopping into the hole?
It's so good. Yeah. And I love the way that those courses are designed where, they're daring you to get a hole in one by lining up these enemies in a specific way, putting power-ups in positions where you could then use them to continue that single stroke. I played the first 3 courses just a couple hours ago, the first 3 worlds, I guess. And it was just blowing me away how much thought was put into that. It kind of reminds me of Super Monkey Ball in a way where, there's the regular way to the quote-unquote regular way to finish a stage, but then the game knows that there's another way you can do it, and it's kind of nudging you and daring you to give it a try. And I think that's really special. It makes you feel good when it works out, too.
True. The game knows that John Cartwright exists, basically, is what you're saying about Monkey Ball.
Yeah.
You can kind of read it, too, because like there are some stages that have certain specific copy abilities that you can get as you're putting Kirby. And then when you grab it, you can use it like immediately or wait a little bit, like for the wheel, for example, and get a lot more distance and hit a lot more things.
Oh, yeah. I love it when there's a variety of enemies as well. So you can decide, it's in copy ability enemies, so you can decide what's going to be the best way or what's going to be the best power up to finish that strategy element as well, which is just so unexpected from what is essentially just a mini golf game.
The most advanced mini golf I've ever played, and I've ever played since.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny to think that it's just basically mini golf. It's not even like the full on like, you're driving characters across a large field or something, which I'm sure we'll get into it a bit later with ideas, but that's something that's really like, it's nice that they condensed it into just this compact experience. Like, it doesn't need to be something super fancy or anything. It's like there are a bunch of puzzle stages, essentially, in how you want to, like, optimally complete them.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually... the game started life, I think, as a game called Special T-Shot for the SNES, which was then adapted to have Kirby as the main character, presumably just to give it more appeal. And then I would imagine then they must have added the copy abilities later. So also having that change, that sort of shift in tone is just awesome. The multiplayer, I mean, the multiplayer is amazing. It's slightly different from the main game. The main game is obviously to complete each course in the least amount of shots possible. But multiplayer, it's all about how many stars you collect. So you get a star for bumping off an enemy, and then if you go through the hole, that's worth 2 stars. I think you can also nick stars by bumping into the other person playing, right? So it's that kind of strategic element of the best way to collect stars, but also not necessarily open up the hole for the next player to land in if it's going to be detrimental to you. And the experience is just brilliant. Do you prefer, Brandon, do you prefer the 2-player or 1-player, or are you sort of even footing on both?
I think I'm probably even footing on both because both are such vastly different experiences. Like there's a lot of strategy in both, but in very different ways.
Yeah.
And because of that, there's a lot of replay value in both modes. So like I'm still making my way through the actual, single player experience for the first time right now. So, my tune might change once I've beaten that and spend more time in multiplayer, because obviously that's going to last a lot longer.
Yes.
But the whole game is such a tight package. I can't really go one way or the other yet.
How about you, Daniel?
Oh yeah, I think I probably lean more towards the multiplayer just because there's a lot more of variety that can be had in that. Like single player is fun. I know I love doing single player as well, but there's also like a finite way that you can do things. While as when you're with a friend, it can get pretty chaotic and you can just kind of start yelling at each other. Because I believe the way it works is like when you hit an enemy, you want to clear out all the enemies, and then that opens the actual hole to complete the stage. And every enemy you defeat, they leave behind a star. But the opposing Kirby can run through that star and steal it instead. And it's like, do I go back and get my stars back, or do I just complete the stage and just take what I got? Yeah. And a lot of trick shots and betrayal happens during these games. And each Kirby also has their own health bar. So if you bump into another Kirby, they lose health. Or if they hit an obstacle, they lose health, and then they lose a turn if they're at 0. So there's a lot of strategy in between. The surprising amount of more strategy than I expected from a mini golf game, essentially.
Well, and competition's kind of baked into it, right? Because you've got, like you're saying, you've got all that strategic element and nicking stars of people, but also what I didn't know for the longest time is that your course card for each level in first player. So there's 3 save files in the game, and it saves your best record. And then the best record is reflected across all 3 save files. So if you're playing, with one of your siblings, you could get your best score for whatever world, but then, your sibling's name might pop up as having less shots to complete it in than you, which again just is just another thing to fire you up and go, right, I'm gonna tackle that world again. I'm gonna find out how to do it better, and I'm gonna get the lowest score on that. It's just every inch of it is sort of curated to keep you wanting to play, to keep you trying to find the best way through the course. And it's just, honestly, I just think it's an absolutely perfect multiplayer game. The only thing that I think lets down single player, now have either of you actually completed the game?
Yeah, I've completed it.
I have not.
I see. I want to, because obviously we need to chat some spoilers because we're going to talk about the game. Brandon, please get back to me when you've done the final boss. I won't say too much more about it. I'll try not to spoil it for you, but I'll be interested to know your thoughts. So yeah, it sounds like we're all in agreement. I think it's a shame there was a 64 game in development, which took it full 3D. Actually, funnily enough, quite reminiscent of Monkey Ball. You've got that sort of checkerboard floor. Kirby's a big old ball. I think it was called Kirby Bowl. I think it would have been interesting to see. But do you know what? We're going to get into that because now we're going to talk about how we might bring this series back. So, Brandon, you won the quiz, and that means that you are the first new president of Nintendo. Congratulations. But we are the board.
Thank you.
But, well, don't thank us yet, because we're the board, and we've demanded that you bring back Kirby's Dream Course. And not only that, but you make it a rousing success. So tell us, please, how do you do that?
I actually wrote this out completely.
Oh, boy.
Oh, my God, Brandon,
All right.
You're my hero. Tell me your plan, point by point, please.
So I'll start with the title. This is Kirby's Extreme Course. And
Yes.
before I get too deep into gameplay and everything, I want to tell you the story of Kirby's Extreme Course, which goes as follows. Kirby is enjoying a day full of snacks and sweets when he falls ill with a tummy ache. As his tummy rumbles, he starts to glow before suddenly shrinking to the size of an ant. Out from Kirby's body pops a single piece of popcorn. It sprouts arms and legs, and it ultimately reveals itself to be the villain, Popscorn. Popscorn then grows to full size and starts popping giant popcorn all over Dreamland, drowning the citizens of Popstar under the weight of its mighty kernels. With the citizens stuck under the supersized snacks, it's up to Kirby to find a way to return to his normal size and take back Dreamland from the clutches of Popscorn. The first level takes place inside of Kirby's house. He attempts to eat as many snacks as he can to regain his size, much like Dream Buffet. This requires him to work his way up the furniture in his home to the kitchen counter where a tasty sweet surprise is found. Following courses follow a similar structure, with Kirby needing to ascend to greater heights as he attempts to regain his size. This means he'll be playing golf in small areas, like amongst blades of grass and inside electronics. Eventually, he'll be as big as mountains and skyscrapers, before ultimately becoming the size of an entire planet where he'll face his final challenge. Kirby faces off against Popscorn in one final boss battle. After she's officially popped, Kirby grows even more, causing the gravitational singularity. He's become so large that space and time itself begins to crumble underneath his girth. This unlocks the final world, inside Kirby. Now Kirby must manifest inside his own body and break down all the food he's eaten in hopes to returning to his normal size once again. Now, instead of ascending, Kirby is descending deeper and deeper into his body, each hole taking him deeper into the depths of his own being. Finally, at the center of Kirby, he is faced with his greatest challenge, himself. Kirby takes on one final golf challenge against the version of himself hidden inside all along, Kibi. New abilities include Sword, which allows Kirby to strike the sword into the ground and bend back to launch himself to greater heights. Other abilities from the original return, such as the high jump, again, allowing Kirby to attain greater heights. The game will be co-developed by HAL Labs and the Pikmin team, as they're used to creating environments that are very small and occasionally vertical. The art direction will be very similar to Kirby in the Forgotten Land. It may be a golf game, but its scope is as big as Kirby's final form. The entire game will be co-op, with the second player playing a rather round King Dedede. Secondary modes include standard match play, as well as special variants, where the goal is to become as big as you possibly can before you run out of strokes. All of these modes are 4-player, each taking on a different color of Kirby or King Dedede. Unlockable colors and outfits can be found throughout the single player and unlocked by playing multiplayer modes. And that is Kirby's Extreme Course.
Oh my god.
I mean, round of applause just for the story itself. That is absolutely insane. Okay, fantastic. I mean, I love this. Popscorn, by the way. That's so on brand for a Kirby villain name. It's excellent.
Thank you. I was very happy with myself when I came up with that.
Okay, so right. So I'm thinking. So you've got the Pikmin team for the environments, and then you've got sort of HAL team with the gameplay. Great. In terms of the gameplay itself, is it, are you going full 3D? Are you staying with the kind of isometric vibe that we have from the SNES? What's the kind of core loop of the game in that sense?
I envision it as a fully 3D experience, so you can really lean into that perspective. And since you're golfing not so much on a flat plane, your aim is to go up. So the hole will be above somewhere, and you need to make your way up there. With it in as few strokes as possible. Wow. So I think it needs to be 3D in order to do that, which is kind of what the basis was from the beginning. Like,
yeah.
I wanted it to be 3D in my head. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to do that, I need it to be 3D for a reason. And I said, well, let's climb. Let's go up and make that the reason it needs to be 3D.
So yours is like, it's almost like a sort of mini golf platformer, right? A mini golf 3D platformer.
Yeah.
Oof. I mean, that is tough physics, but that sounds good. All right, you still got the power ups. Still got the 2-player. Daniel, any questions?
Where does Meta Knight come into this?
So Meta Knight's on vacation underneath a bunch of popcorn.
Oh,
God,
no.
I hadn't considered where he'd fit into this game.
For God's sake, Brandon, get your priorities straight. Get him in there.
I'm sorry. I was thinking, there's unlockable colors and outfits. I was thinking it could be similar to Dream Buffet, where there's a Meta Knight outfit for Kirby. I think the reason I didn't have Meta Knight as player 2, and I went with King Dedede, is because King Dedede, he steals food, he eats a lot, he's already round, kind of fits into that.
Mhm.
But with Meta Knight, that doesn't really fit his character in any way, so I opted to not have him be player 2.
Oh, fair enough. He's too
Gotcha.
fancy for that
Okay.
nonsense.
I've never seen him eat.
Oh, I mean, this might get a bit
Master's in the
dark,
way.
but what does he eat? Does he eat? The creatures that Kirby eats? Does he swallow things up like Kirby?
Well, behind the mask, he is a Kirby, so it would be
Still Kirby, isn't it?
believable to think that he can consume, but he chose the way of the sword, and so that's the only ability that he knows. He's an excellent chef, knows all the cutting methods.
He's Chef Kawasaki's underling.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
canon
God.
now.
That's why you only see Kawasaki with the pan. He doesn't cut anything. Meta Knight does it for him.
Yes. That's a whole other spin-off game that I want to see, but we haven't got time for that right now. Okay, 2-player modes. So what? Actually, so tell me then, in terms of getting the ball up to the hole, are you still sort of clearing enemies like the original game, or is it simply sort of reach the target?
So clearing enemies will spawn food
Okay.
that would then make Kirby bigger. So the way I've envisioned this is there's going to be obstacles that Kirby cannot cross until he is big enough. So he needs to be larger and larger in order to get to each hole. And that size keeps going up. So when you finish hole 1 of a
Yeah.
course, when you get to hole 2, you're going to start at a bigger size than you did in the first one, because it's
Okay.
all about getting bigger and bigger as we get to the end of the game. But I was thinking, like, there could be walls that you can't break if Kirby's too small. He needs to be
Nice.
big and girthy, I guess.
He's a
Love my
girthy boy.
Kirby girthy.
Yeah.
Girthy.
But the power-ups themselves, the copy abilities, I kind of see them working the same way they do currently, where they are on the field, you pick them up, you can use them immediately. I don't want to change that core experience too much. I know we're going 3D, but I want the heart and the kind of idea there to stay the same.
Okay. And what kind of visual style are you envisaging? Because obviously Kirby, quite famous. You've got yarn Kirby, you've got clay stuff, you've got very cartoony stuff. What's the kind of the visual setting for the game?
I wanted it to match the kind of seriousness / ridiculousness that the story goes to by the end. So I want it to feel like Kirby in the Forgotten Land. I don't want people to see this as just a golf game. You mentioned it's a cross between mini golf and a 3D platformer.
Right.
I want people to see the scope,
Yeah.
and I think the art direction needs to match for that.
Oh, nice. And what about so obviously we've talked about. No, we've covered that. I was going to say about final bosses, but we've covered that. That's all. Any other questions, Daniel?
No, I think we're pretty good. I mean, that's very thorough. It's more thorough than I would have made myself. So I already feel like I need to go back and write some stuff for my idea.
I want you to know this happened like 4 hours ago, and my brain just started spilling out.
4 hours. You've come up with like a perfect pitch in 4 hours. That's insane. You're in the wrong job, Brandon. What are you doing here?
I don't know. It just kind of happened.
Let's just make this ourselves.
Okay. That is the most prepared pitch that we've had on this podcast. And Daniel, I'm sorry to say that you are the next president of Nintendo. So your job
Uh-oh.
is to bring back Kirby's Dream Course. Please tell the board, how do you do it?
I guess in my idea, it was something a bit more traditional, but it also incorporates ideas that you would see with Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So it's sort of like, it is still an adventure game, but it's the stages are in fact the courses in which you golf in. And the plot of this is that I haven't really truly have gotten as deep as to figure out who's causing this or what kind of clever name to give them. But everything in Popstar is turning around. The planet itself, it's not a star anymore. It's just a ball, and there's a force that's turning everyone that you've ever known in the Kirby universe into a ball form. So, not just Kirby and Dedede and Meta Knight. It's also like the animal friends from Kirby Dream Land. Their
Nice.
balls now. The characters that you've seen in other games like Ribbon and Ribbon from Kirby 64, all those friends, the villains from previous games as well. They're all become balls now, and nobody is able to figure out why this is happening. And so Kirby goes on an adventure to figure out, like, he kind of just rolls around and he can hop a bit while he's in these overworld areas.
Okay.
But you can also use the warp putter to also send Kirby from one place to another level as well. And the warp putter is also what you use in the stage themselves. So it's like a golden putter. It has the warp star aesthetic to it.
Right.
And so when you enter these stages, they are kind of like your traditional, like you're on the field, but they're very much more like Kirby themed that you would see in games like the Forgotten Land. And there are enemies that are impeding your way to get to the final goal, the final hole as well.
Okay.
And you can since it's so wide in 3D, you can kind of target some enemies. So like when Kirby becomes close in proximity to an enemy, he'll just kind of inhale them, kind of like in Kirby Air Ride. You don't have to actually focus too much on inhaling. You gotta be in proximity and you'll absorb them. And there's abilities like the sword ability, so you can slash enemies out of the way. There's like the winged ability. Wing Kirby can kind of float down gently, so you can have more control as you land the ball. Of course, there's ones like stone that just bring you straight down, and ones like what's another? I had another one if I need idea too. Like the tornado one will kind of just keep going forward until you stop it. That's also kind of like how it works in Dream Course. Like a lot of these abilities will have kind of a relation to how they worked in previous titles. But yeah, you can be Kirby, and then as you continue through stages, you'll save other characters, and slowly but surely these characters can transform out of their ball form, but Kirby is like the one that's still stuck, so he has to keep saving everybody.
Okay,
And
nice.
throughout, like, you have like a world map, right? Like I keep thinking about Forgotten Land because it has such a good template for this. But the overworld also has like your bonus stages as well. Like this, you're able to go in there and collect bonuses, and so that you can play as other characters in the game. And these bonus stages are modeled after Kirby's Dream Course stages, so they're mini golf stages instead. So they're like little bite-sized puzzles to figure out. You have to clear the hole in so many turns, and it's pretty much a callback, but it's like in full 3D. And yeah, that's essentially more or less the idea I had for the game. Multiplayer would also be a factor as well. It would be, I guess, it kind of would be something like what you did in Super Rush, Mario Golf Super Rush, where you can either do it all at the same time and just kind of mess with each other while you're on the field, or you can just do traditional, like you take turns after one another. And yeah, that's also an option to do that. And I think it'd be fun if we had like also a multiplayer with the Dream Course inspired stages, just for that little bit of a callback, because a lot of games they'll have like your typical, you're driving out on the field, but also you're doing the mini golf courses too. And I always enjoy the mini golf courses more, which is probably why I enjoy Dream Course as much as I do.
Yeah, well, I'm still reeling from the sentence, "They are all become balls now," which is my favorite thing that I think I've ever heard you say.
Oh yeah,
So-
everyone is round and rotund. I love it if there were like other things too. Like you can add some cosmetics. So like when you do a perfect shot with Kirby, there's like the rainbow path from like Kirby and the Rainbow Curse trailing behind him,
Oh,
because
nice.
now you're a ball. There's other games where he's become balls as well. So there's that. There's like,
You've got to stop saying
obviously
"become
Kirby's dream
balls."
thing.
I can't cope with it. I'm so
I mean, this is
juvenile.
the game. The main character is ball, so you gotta know what you're getting into.
All right, but I'm still, so hang on. What's the sort of loop of the game? Is it 3D or 2D? Is it still like these sort of traditional courses that you have from the original game? What's the kind of path through it?
Yeah, it's like you go through these different stages designed as like your typical golf courses. Like you're trying to get a par. To clear the stage, you got to get under par, for example. Maybe it can be like, oh, you're trying to collect this, like for example, a crystal something at the very end of the hole, but if you take too long, it's gonna fly away, so that you can't collect it anymore. So you need to get it underneath a certain score, so that you can collect that item. And yeah, there's a you clear a stage and then you move on to the next one. There's like different worlds, so obviously different biomes. Like you have your typical like greenery area, but it can get a bit more creative. Like maybe there's a stage that's just food now, but it's all a bunch of round and circular food. So there's like donuts, there's gumballs, there's it's just it really leans into that aesthetic. It'd be a lot to think of one for like every single stage, but pretty much round is the theme of the game essentially.
Right.
So
Love it.
I'm just envisioning like, you know, a perfectly round, beautiful pizza that you're unable to take a slice from because it would break the circle.
That's
no.
agony. That is agony. If I remember rightly from my classics lessons, that is one of the circles of hell, is just round pizzas that you cannot extract slices from. I'm pretty sure that's in Dante's Inferno, right? I think that
sounds terrible.
if
Yeah,
I'm remembering that
I
rightly.
believe it.
That's my personal hell.
I believe it.
Brandon, any questions for Daniel's vision?
When can I play?
We can play it as soon as we get your idea pitched to Nintendo.
Yeah, they're definitely
so we can get both in.
They definitely tune into this. Okay. Oh, and it's 3D then, Daniel, as well, yeah?
Yeah, it's very much 3D, except I
okay.
guess the little bonus stages that call back to Dream Course would still maintain that isometric view, just that one perspective as you do them. But they would still have that 3D look to them.
It's kind of like how in Kirby Air Ride there's a top ride mode. This is the top ride of golf.
It's always so funny that people forget that Top Ride is in the game because they always play either City Trial or Air Ride. But I like Top Ride. It's a fun little arcadey look at it, and that's what I want that bonus stage to be, like a little side thing to take a break from the main, the main intended, I guess, quote unquote, style of the game would be.
Yeah, nice. And what about for both of you actually? So what's the kind of multiplayer offering? Is it the sort of traditional one where you'd basically essentially kind of adapt what you're doing in first player to sort of fit the 2-player thing, or would you have sort of, because you mentioned Super Rush, Daniel, so would you have something sort of akin to that?
I would think it would be fun to have everyone just playing at the same time, but you kind of cut out the part where the caddy is running to the ball. You just kind of start after the ball lands instead.
Well, you are the ball, I guess.
Yeah, so that's
True.
kind of, yeah, that's the difference. Like you're just sending yourself here, so there's no need to wait. You just keep putting as soon as you can. So it is kind of like speed golf essentially.
What about you, Brendan? What's your, how does multiplayer fit into this vision of yours?
I had one idea in the pitch where instead of just like a traditional game of golf, and I don't even think this needs to be on a course as much as it would be like a battlefield, because there's battle golf in Super Rush. So I could see something similar to that, but where the goal isn't to get to the hole, the goal is to become large, and you need to become large before you run out of strokes. So like you could play a game where you have 30 strokes per player on this massive field,
Right.
and the goal is to just eat as much food and become as big as possible.
Excellent.
But that would just be an extra mode in addition to something like a traditional stroke play, and the courses would be made up of the single player stages. I'd want that to be malleable.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, I think there's so many ways that you can use the golf gameplay in a non-traditional format. And I would love just a game that's packed full of stuff like that. Like, here's golf, but here's golf where the goal isn't the hole.
Nice. And okay, so last question then for me, Daniel, is who's making this for you?
Oh, who's making this? Oh gosh, that's one I hadn't thought too much on. Just because I can't imagine anyone except Hal working on this. Much like Hal Brandon had Hal working on this game as well. Just because they have they love Kirby more than anything. Like I would love to see all the little references they put, because they always do little like callbacks from either it's musical callbacks or visuals callbacks to previous Kirby games, and they would do such a good job with that. Yeah, I would love to see how they would work on this, because I don't know, I just trust HAL Laboratories with Kirby with anything, essentially. I know it's not the most interesting answer. I don't have anyone
No,
else
no.
to point out for that.
Any more questions for Daniel, Brandon?
No, I think we've basically covered it. I guess neither of us really talked about music. I didn't really think about it for mine, but did you have any thoughts about that?
No, I hadn't really thought about like who would compose it, for example.
Yeah, or like a specific style or genre of music. What kind of vibe are you going for?
I guess it would be. I love to go for a more chill vibe because I mean golfing is a very like relaxing. It's supposed to be a fairly relaxing sports, and so I would love some more ambience in its soundtrack. I guess there are probably some stages in which there are more enemies to deal with, so that it might pick up in tone and pace. It might just transition to a more action oriented or just a bit more energy behind it with more percussion. But overall, I would like to just have it be a chill vibe and experience.
Very cool.
Love it.
Well, we're running short on time, so I'm going to quickly pitch my one to you guys. Both very strong pitches, so I'm feeling quite nervous about mine. But I had a thought. I was thinking, I love the original game so much, and it's been so long since we've had it that I think I want to try and stick actually. So mine's going to not go for 3D. I'm going to stick to the isometric 2D viewpoint that Kirby Dream Course has. I was thinking, who's going to make this for me? And I thought initially I thought Ubisoft, because I think Ubisoft do a very good job of things like Prince of Persia as a sort of a very good example of a Metroidvania. They did Mario and Rabbids where you had that kind of isometric battlefields, and I thought, not quite the vibe that I want though. And then I thought Grezzo, sort of maybe just a straight remake with that kind of toy box aesthetic that they have for Zelda. And I thought, no, the people that want to make this are Next Level Games, and I'll tell you why. It's because the thing for me about Kirby's Dream Course, right, is it's such a joyful game. Like when you complete a world, you've got the whole screen fills up with those colourful stars, and you blast off in that rocket, and you've got all the stars in the background. The music that plays, just everything about it is sort of joyful and oozes loads of character. And Next Level Games have that in their games. You think of Luigi's Mansion, the characterization there. It's so detailed and so perfect. And they've also got experience handling balls. Lol. They made the Strikers series, and they also made Metroid Prime Federation Force. Now, however you feel about that game, it did have the blast ball mode, which was actually quite enjoyable. And in terms of music, funny you mentioned that, I always think about Punch Out and the kind of trumpety music that they have in between, and the sort of stuff the Strikers Charge are like. So that for me is quite a nice fit. And Brandon, I also went a bit nuts with the story. Okay, so
here we go.
the thing that disappointed me about the original is I don't like the last boss fight. So my story is all of them are sort of hanging out on Planet Popstar when all of a sudden I don't have I wish I had a name as good as Popscorn. I don't have one yet, but a sort of crazy golf gang, intergalactic golf gang, come down from the sky, these aliens, and they're going to turn Planet Popstar into a golf resort. They travel the galaxy, turning planets into their very own golf resorts. And the only way to stop them is for Kirby and the gang to challenge and beat them at golf, right? And they've got 8 pros. So you have 8 worlds, and you have to basically play through a series of holes and then beat their pro at the end of each one. And the pros have different skills. So, one of them is sort of very good at chip trick shots. One of them has like a sort of some sort of attacking thing. To be fair, I haven't thought too much about that. But you have to beat them each world, and there's like a stories you're going through. And then at the end, the final boss is like a huge, almost like living robot crazy golf thing, like clown heads and all this kind of stuff. And while it's attacking you, you have to play golf and like essentially travel through it, going through all the holes of it until you make it to the top to ring the bell or whatever to make it blow up. So you're using like all the golf skills that you've acquired as you go through. And I thought initially maybe RPG elements, kind of like Golf Story, which is an incredible golf RPG game. But I love that game. I love that game. But I thought, no, I don't want to make it too complicated because I love the simplicity of the original game and how tight it is. So instead, to give it a bit of longevity and variety, you have the classic Kirby gameplay where he gets the power-ups. I think I even keep the same power-ups. But you can also play as King Dedede, you can play as Meta Knight, or you can play as Bandana Dee. And instead of them having power-ups as an option, they have their movesets, right? So it completely changes the way you play and experience the story. So Meta Knight can glide with his wings, but he can only glide in a straight line. And then, if he's near the hole but not quite there, he can swing his sword to pull him forward into it. He can swipe at enemies. Dedede can helicopter, which is a bit like the umbrella one that Kirby has, which lets him sort of move around, or he can, strike the ground and knock out 2 enemies at once. Dedede has a helicopter, but also if he's going over the hole, he can, lunge his spear down. Just really different movesets which break up the gameplay. And the thing that I love about that, I honestly, I could play the multiplayer of Kirby's Dream Course for hours on end. So you go nuts with the modes, right? There's a mode where you can play as the 4 different characters, and instead of sort of, getting the stars and things, you have to knock everybody out. And if you knock out, the last character who's still conscious, you then have to get a hole in one. Otherwise, everybody wakes back up again, and you all take it in turns. So there's like the strategy of who do you knock out, when do you do the knockout. You've got to place yourself in range of the hole in one. There's the rush style gameplay from the Mario Golf game we talked about, where you're all just trying to putt it madly at once. The traditional gameplay, and then on top of that, you've got the original 64 courses as well, which you can unlock after doing the story, which then you can experience as the other characters to completely change up the gameplay. And the characters are 3D, but it's all still that 2D isometric thing. So they're 3D models, so you can do things with particles and things like that. But I think you still keep that classic look of it as well. You're visiting these planets that these aliens have and doing crazy aesthetic things with them, but it's all still that isometric viewpoint. And that's my pitch.
I love that. I'm sitting here thinking about like how dramatically different all 3 of our ideas are.
I know. That's what I love about this podcast. I mean, I know it's my podcast, but I love hearing people's ideas about games, because they're games that we love, right? And you can have such different things, but I can't ever be mean about them because I'm just too giddy with excitement imagining these games coming to life.
I was loving the idea of the different abilities from the other Kirby characters, like Bandana Dee just being able to like hot drop right into the hole.
Yeah.
Like I love that. That's so cool.
Oh, it would change. It's that thing, isn't it? When you have, I think all the way back to like Mario 2 on the NES and SNES, when you just playing as Luigi or Peach or Toad makes it it's the same game, but it makes it a completely different game. And it's that thing of going, actually, I want to go through it with each of these characters because it's enjoyable, not for a trophy or because it's a slog, but because it's a different experience that you want to experience,
Yeah, that's something I always really appreciated with Mario 2 is that every world they don't change the world depending on what character you play as. It's just all tailored and with each character thought about in mind while designing those. And it sounds like this golf game sounds like it would be doing the same thing. So yeah, that sounds like something that I'd love to try and play that.
Well, listen, we must wrap up because we're over time. But any questions from either of you about my pitch before we go?
Oh, I think you covered it. I can't think of one.
Yeah.
I may not be prepared for quizzes, but that is the most prepared pitch I've ever done. So I'm gonna pat myself on the back.
I'm gonna virtually pat you on the back.
Hey, thank you very much. Well, the question is, which pitch do you think is best? Do you like Brandon's size-bending meta adventure, examining the very fabric of reality itself, where you're climbing up platforms and gaining in size? Do you like Daniel's shape-bending, more traditional mini-golf experience, where you have to save your friends from ball form whilst revisiting classic stages? Or do you like my classic Kirby's Dream Course gameplay with new characters and new ways to play with a more story-driven focus? Or have you got a better pitch yourself? Let us know in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, please do like and subscribe. It helps us to grow. If you're listening as a podcast, please do rate and comment. You can follow us all over on BlueSky. Brandon, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. I was not expecting to just get so into the weeds with my own pitch. I really enjoyed it.
I loved it. Daniel, thank you for coming back.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to continue doing these at some point too.
Thank you. I hope you'll both come back. We're obviously such big Kirby fans here as well. If you're only listening, I've got a Waddle Dee. There's a Kirby there. There's a Kirby there. Daniel's dressed for the dance. This has been such a fun discussion. Thank you very much for joining us. But for now, that's game over. Goodbye.